Hello, welcome. I'm Melissa. Thank you so much for joining me. Today's video is going to be kind of a fun one. I want to do like this or that, or do I recommend two plants that are similar? Do I recommend them? Someone suggested I do a video like this over on my Instagram, and I wrote down all the plants. I'm going to try to stick to plants that I've grown before, because if I haven't grown it, then I don't know how it is care-wise. So I figured this would be a fun little video to do today, and I'm really excited to get started. Up first is the Monstera Thai versus Monstera Albo. Do I recommend them? Which one is better? Vice versa. I'll just give you my kind of experience with growing both of them. I do have multiples of each in my collection. I love Monstera. It's my favorite genus, so I had to start with these ones. So similarities, I do feel like they kind of, I don't know, to me they look different because the Albo has the beautiful white variegation, you have half moons. The variegation isn't predictable. You could have reversion going on. And compare that to the Monstera Thai, you have that beautiful speckling variegation. It's on every leaf. Sometimes you get bits of chunkier like creaminess, whereas the Albo, it's hard to tell exactly like what each leaf is gonna do next. And sometimes you get all white with the Monstera Albo, which can be kind of scary because the white leaves don't have enough chlorophyll. So if you grow a Monstera Albo and it keeps giving you all white, then the only thing you can really do is chop it back. You are taking a little bit more of a risk going with the Monstera Albo as far as the variegation goes than if you were to choose the Thai. I just love the more white variegation, the more the color and everything. I favor the Monstera Albo with the variegation a little bit more than the Thai. Chai says hi. He's right here. He's in his little cuddly, lovey mood. Growing them, they both love a lot of light in order to kind of maintain the white on the Monstera Albo. They can brown more easily too. That's another thing with the variegation. Any kind of subtle change in its care, environment, root health, you could potentially get browning. And I just feel like giving them really good light is kind of a key to keep them growing happy and not brown as much. Browning can happen. It's kind of inevitable, but if your plant is healthy and it's in like a stable condition, you shouldn't really get browning, I feel like, as much as if it were like unhealthy and something's going on with the root system. And talking about root system, Monstera Thai, on the other hand, rots more easily. I have had rot with my Monstera Thai most recently. I actually had a Thai a long time ago that actually had rot when I bought it from the nursery, so that one didn't make it, unfortunately. But they are more prone, more susceptible to rot, which it can make them a little bit more challenging, because if you spend that money on a variegated Monstera and then it gets rot, it could potentially die. I do feel like the Albos are less prone to rot, so if that's like another factor going into it, I feel like if you don't really want to take that chance with the Thai, then the Albo may be the one that you want to get. But in my experience, they are more prone to rot. As far as the size, the Monstera Thai gets huge one day, and Monstera Albo, they're like a smaller form, so they don't get nearly as large, and they love to climb. The Monstera Thai, I feel like it's more of like a widespread growth, and they grow a little bit differently too. So the Albo has the spacing between the nodes, that's called the internode. That spacing is a little bit longer with the Albo, and the Thai is much, much shorter. They don't really climb as quickly. They grow a little bit slower in my experience. And then when you go to propagate, if that's something that you're considering, Monstera Albo, you're gonna have an easier time propagating them than the Thai, just because that spacing is so tight. So the Thai could also be more susceptible to stem rot when you're propagating and stuff. So you have to be careful with that. So if you're struggling to decide between the two, I personally have a preference towards the Albo just because of the ease of propagating, the ease of like less rot. The only thing is you're taking a chance on the variegation, but if you buy one that's more highly variegated, then the chance of it continuing and growing well is higher. So if you buy one that's less variegated, it tends to not be as variegated, I think. Don't quote me on that. I would just take my chances on one that's more variegated. And if you were deciding between buying a full plant, a cutting, mid-cut, top cut, I would always preference buying a top cut because it grows a little bit faster. Mid-cuts sometimes can take a while to push a new leaf. One of my first Monstera albos, I have like a whole reel and story behind it. It was my first expensive plant. It was a mid-cut. I purchased it online. I rooted it and potted it up. It stayed that one original leaf for over a year before I decided to push a new growth. It was like, took forever, and it finally popped out its first new leaf like a month after I moved here, and I was so excited. And then it's grown into this beautiful plant in a year's time. And the variegation is just so beautiful on this Monstera. So definitely you are taking a bit of a chance with the cutting, especially a mid-cut. If you're wanting more quick growth, then I would go with a top cut or a small established plant, or even a big established plant, whatever your heart desires. For me, Monstera Albo is the winner. I would be okay not having a tie in my collection. I would not be okay with not having an Albo in my collection. That's how I look at it. If I had to choose one or the other, I would definitely go with the Albo. Next up, we are going to compare the Splendid versus Glorious. Those were another two suggestions. They are philodendrons. They are hybrids, both of them. They are very similar. They are different. And do I recommend them? I recommend both of them. And I'll kind of compare them and kind of give you my thoughts on growing both of those. I actually have both of mine on a moss pole behind me, and I will give you a closer look at them. The Philodendron Splendid and Glorious were both started out as small plants in my collection. Actually, the Splendid, I take that back. It started as a top propagation, and the Glorious I actually got later as a small plant that I ended up propagating both of them to do multiples on a moss pole. I started both of mine on poles last year. Last May, actually, it's been a year, and they have just grown into these beautiful plants on moss poles. So the Splendid is the Melanochrysum and Varicosum. Those are the parents. So this one, my Splendid resembles more of the, I feel like it resembles more of the Varicosum a little bit. And the Glorious, the parents are the Milano and the Gloriosum. And my Glorious kind of more resembles the Gloriosum, I feel like. But they're both easy care, easy growing philodendrons. It's hard to pick a favorite between those two, it really is. Maturity wise, since I'm growing them on poles, maturity wise, I like the mature leaf of the Glorious better than the Splendid. The Splendid kind of grows more elongated at the bottom, and the Glorious kind of gets these cute little like round shape top parts of the leaf, kind of like little earlobes. I don't know. They're both velvety, very gorgeous leaves. The Splendid has like a different veining, and in the light it kind of looks and appears a little bit different. The Glorious definitely resembles the Gloriosum, where you have the white veining. The leaves kind of have that heart shape to it, and then when they get more mature, they kind of get like bigger and overall fluffier. But again, they both are climbers. They love to climb. I consider them just like a really easy philodendron. Care-wise, I recommend both of them. It's just kind of like what leaf shape you prefer on these ones, honestly. I will say the Glorious is a little bit more of a thirsty plant than the Splendid, but the Splendid grows faster. It has climbed up to the top of an extension, whereas the Glorious is just now needing an extension. So I feel like my Splendid has doubled in like growth compared to the Glorious. The Glorious is a little bit more slow, if that makes a difference in which one you're considering. I feel like if I had to choose, I just love the look of the Glorious when it matures. Those leaves are just beautiful compared to the Splendid. So I feel like I'm gonna have to give it to the Glorious. It's hard to choose, but I feel like I have to. But again, I recommend both of them. You can't go wrong with either. Next up, we had a suggestion on doing the variegated heartleaf versus like the Philodendron, like Rio, Cream Splash. Those plants are honestly some of my favorite easygoing phylos. I actually have the Variegated Hederaceum heartleaf, and I have the regular all green, and then I actually have the Silver Stripe, actually, which the Silver Stripe, Gabby, Cream Splash, to me they all kind of look similar in a way. They are different. I have a little bit of a preference towards the variegated heartleaf because I love variegated plants, and just that overall speckling of the variegation is beautiful. I have both of mine climbing now. My Silver Stripe I did have in a trailing basket. It was a small one. It started as like a small tiny plant, and I didn't like the way that it grew in a hanging basket. It grew kind of small leaves, and I didn't really like it. You could tell it wanted to climb. So I would definitely give it some sort of climbing support than like a trailing basket of it. But the striping appearance of it is just beautiful. I feel like any kind of variety that you get of that plant I recommend. Now I haven't cared for like the Gabby. It has more white, so I don't know if it's more of a slow grower or it can brown more easily, but the Silver Stripe itself is striking and beautiful, and as it climbs it will get a little bit, bigger leaves. My heartleaf, the variegated, is actually starting to get some bigger leaves, but I just think it's hard to pick between those two again. Again, they're both easy care. I recommend both of them. If you've been eyeing either of them, go for it. But I'm going to give it to the variegated heartleaf just because I just think if that one disappeared, I would be really sad compared to the Silver Stripe. The Silver Stripe is beautiful, and it kind of looks like the Brazil as well. That's another different one in that family. The Brazil is beautiful. It's more of like the green on green, like lime green versus dark green, whereas the Silver Splash has like the streak in the middle and some different colors. It's like a lighter green and then like a cream and then like a darker green around it. So again, I feel like since the Brazil is more common and it kind of looks similar, I would say you don't need a Silver Stripe. But again, they are different, and the leaf shape is more like elongated. The tip is more pointed. But the heartleaf, the variegated, has that classic heart shape. It's beautiful. I love both. I recommend both. Again, I just got to give it to the variegated heartleaf on this one. Next up, we are going to do the Philodendron Pink Princess versus the Philodendron Strawberry Shake. There was also a Red Anderson thrown in there, which I feel like they're kind of similar in a way. Hands down, giving it to the Pink Princess if it's variegated. Now, I think when it's more of the Burgundy Princess where it's just dark leaves, I think it's an ugly plant. I'm not gonna lie. I don't like it. The only reason I love mine is because they are just strikingly, they have that beautiful variegation. I got so lucky with mine, but I have to give it to the Pink Princess. I do have a Strawberry Shake, and it started from a cutting. Mine had okay variegation. I didn't like the way that it was growing. I actually chopped the top off and propped the entire rest of the plant. I have the top still like rooting. I haven't potted it up yet. I think the shape and the variegation on the Strawberry Shake isn't as pretty. I don't like the leaf shape really. And the Pink Princess with the variegation is just stunning. So if you're looking to get a Pink Princess, I recommend buying one that has really good genetics, really good genes, so that you are more likely to have that continue on every leaf. And I would look for variegation on every leaf when you're buying it. I would stay away from getting these at the big box store. I don't like the genetics on those. I would just do a search for one, maybe on Etsy, or even, I actually got mine from Facebook Marketplace. It was such a lucky random find, but definitely buy one that's more variegated. Pay a little bit extra to get that variegation. You won't be disappointed, and you'll be really happy with it. Mine is starting to mature. It's growing from its own caterpillar now. The leaves are getting a little bit bigger, and I love mine. I just hands down, I actually have a few of them. I hands down recommend the Pink Princess over the Strawberry Shake. The Strawberry Shake can be beautiful. I've seen some really beautiful specimens, and I feel like care-wise, they're roughly the same. I feel like I don't really notice one versus the other. I feel like the strawberry shake is a lot more slow, as if you have, mine started from a cutting, so it took a while to actually grow into a plant. And I feel like the aerials kind of grow a little bit weird on that one. I think it's just the leaf shape for me. It's more of like a triangle in a way, where it's like bigger. I don't know. I'm just not really a fan of that one. If it disappeared from my collection, I would not care at all. The pink princess, I don't know, it's beautiful. I would be so sad if that one disappeared. So definitely go with the pink princess over the strawberry shake, in my opinion. So if you don't agree, that is okay. These are just my thoughts, and you guys wanted to know what I thought about them. So gotta give it to the pink princess. Next up is two more phylos you want me to compare, and that is the Philodendron Majestic and the Philodendron Sodiroi. I love both. Someone else wanted me to give my opinion on the El Choco, which I'll throw that one in here too, just because it's in like this little philodendron little group. Let's start with the Philodendron Sodiroi and Majestic. They are very similar. Those are, I would consider, still newer plants to me. I've had them since last year sometime, whereas the El Choco I've had for like 2 years now, probably not quite that long. The El Choco is definitely more finicky. I feel like it rots more easily, as far as it's more prone to it. I've had rot with mine, and it's beautiful though. I feel like it loves to climb. It would want that climbing support. I feel like all of these want that climbing support. The Sodiroi is just gorgeous. The leaves on this plant, that pop of silver, the leaf shape is such a beautiful heart shape. The Majestic is gorgeous too. It has this beautiful sheen. My Majestic had some rot, so I'm currently rerooting it, and I will be putting it back on a pole. Now, I will say maturity wise, I like the Sodiroi over the Majestic, just because I feel like the Majestic leaves, when they get bigger, aren't as pretty. But if you keep it as a smaller plant, then I feel like they're both beautiful. Again, I feel like care-wise, they're very similar phylos. I recommend them both. The Sodiroi, I feel like I'm gonna have to give it to the Sodiroi, just because it does grow a bit tighter, like the internodal spacing. So I feel like the petioles maybe grow a little bit longer. Maturity wise, I like the Sodiroi look versus the Majestic look, but as they're like more juvenile, they're both gorgeous plant leaves. I'm more of a fan of the silvery blue, so I feel like I have to give it to the Sodiroi. And again, they both want to climb, and the El Choco is beautiful too. It's got that dark green velvetyness to it. I feel like if you get an El Choco, you might be risking more of a little bit of a struggle growing that one. I've had issues with mine, so just because I've had issues with mine doesn't mean that it's like a problematic plant. Just in my experience, it's a little bit more of a finicky one, and it can be a little bit more stubborn. So out of the bunch, I'm gonna have to give it to the Sodiroi, then the Majestic, then the El Choco. If the El Choco disappeared, I don't really care too much, because I have my big leaf phylos that I love more, my moss pole ones, my Splendid and my Glorious. I prefer those over the El Choco. And I believe the El Choco loses the red on the backside of the leaves as they mature too, which makes the plant beautiful, but I hands down prefer my Glorious and my Splendid over the El Choco. So this one goes to the Sodiroi. I had some different suggestions doing the Frydeks, the regular green versus the variegated. I have both of them. Now, the regular green, mine recently is throwing a little bit of a temper tantrum. I've always had pretty good luck growing mine. I do grow mine in soil. I'm going to be growing some in pond, actually. I want to try it out. They are somewhat finicky. The variegated one I haven't had for too long, but I feel like the variegated one is more finicky than the regular green. So I haven't had mine enough to really give per se like advice on growing it, just because mine kind of went dormant and I'm growing it back. I have little baby corms I'm growing too that I'll show you. Alocasias just need that environment. They need that consistency. With watering, they are a finicky plant genus. Alocasias are prone to spider mites, which they stress those spider mites very easily. I've always had good luck with my Alocasia. but lately I've had some fungal issues, which is another problem with them. I find they are more prone to fungal issues, especially in a more humid environment. At least that's what I've noticed, and they are very stress sensitive. You can't go wrong with the regular green Frydek. I feel like if you want to dive into Alocasia Frydeks before going out and getting the variegated one, since the green is more readily available, I feel like they are less expensive. I would practice growing a green one before you spend money on a variegated one, because I would hate for you to like buy a variegated one and then something happened to it and then you're like out all that money. I feel like if you can make the regular green one happy, then you should be able to grow the variegated one. I feel like the only difference with the variegated one is, again, with the variegation, I feel like, you know, you are more prone to browning. If you find that they're too finicky for you, then honestly, I wouldn't waste my money on buying a variegated one just because of the look of these beautiful ones that you see all the time, because I don't know, they can be tricky. So I would definitely say go with the green one, see how you like it. And if it's too finicky for you, I wouldn't grow and waste money on the variegated one. Another one you guys wanted me to do was the Philodendron Jose Bueno versus the, I don't know if I had to pronounce that one, the Paraiso Verde or one. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I don't have that one. I have a Jose Bueno though, so I feel like I can touch on it a little bit. Now, I'm not a fan of the Jose. I'm not in love with mine. I don't really care for the variegation or the leaf shape at all. I bought a cutting a long time ago, and mine is outside actually. I do need to repot it. I don't know. I've just never been a fan of it. I feel like the variegation as it kind of matures isn't as pretty for some reason. The other one I just don't care for. I don't really like the variegation pattern or anything with it. So I'm not sure how the care is with that one. The Jose I feel like can brown easily too with the variegation. Just like with the lack of chlorophyll in some of those leaves. So you are risking that. Again, it's a variegated plant, but Jose, not my favorite. I don't really think they're plants that I would just care to own. Like even my Jose, even though like I have one, I don't really care. Like if it disappeared today, it would not bother me one bit. I just think there's like other plants that are much prettier than that one. And I don't feel the need to like own every plant like that. So I would say I would give it to the Jose just because I have experience with it and the variegation is prettier to me. But definitely do and get what you want and what you like. But I would say X on either of those. Okay, we got two more left. The next one we are going to compare, someone wanted me to compare the Anthurium Warocqueanum versus the Regale. I don't have the Regale. It's beautiful, but I don't know like care-wise. I don't know anything about it and how like finicky of an Anthurium it is. But with experience, my Anthurium Warocqueanum, well, most recently it had some rot, so it's finicky. It is finicky, yes. In my experience trying to grow it, I honestly don't know with what's remaining of my plant, what's going to make it. It was growing well, and yeah, I had to change the substrate after finding rot, and now it's not doing that well. But it's a finicky Anthurium. I would say, honestly, I feel like why don't you just go with like a different strappy Anthurium? I've always wanted the Pallidiflorium, I think it is. I don't know. I'll put the name of it on the screen and maybe a photo here, but I heard that those ones are easier. But the Regale, since I've never had one or cared for one, I don't really want to give like my opinion on it. I do think they're beautiful, but I wouldn't want one in my collection. I've seen like pretty mature leaves of it, and I feel like space-wise too, I don't know. I'm not like obsessed with it. I don't feel like I have to have it. I've seen some at a garden center before, and I wasn't like super in love with it. So yes, the Warocqueanums are beautiful. If you can get them to grow beautifully and just have that mature specimen, they are beautiful. So I can't say that I won't ever get one again, like if mine doesn't make it. I'm going to try and do my best with what I have left, and maybe at some point in my future I will want to try again. But definitely they are risky, so if you're looking to get one, just keep in mind that it may cause you more stress and it may not just even be worth it. Maybe just admire it from afar. So yeah, I don't know. I would definitely, for me, like look-wise, I give it to the Warocqueanum, but care-wise, since I haven't cared for the Regale, I can't really give my opinion on it, but care-wise, definitely Warocqueanum is tricky. And last but not least, you wanted me to compare the mint Monstera versus the Aurea. Now I have the Aurea, I do not have the mint. The mint is on my top wish list right now. If any plant that I want the mint Monstera. I have to have it one day. I will have it one day. I love them both. You can't compare them. They're both beautiful. They're different enough that you need both of them in your collection. And the Albo, you need them all. The yellow variegation, if you're not a fan of yellow, then honestly I would just go with the Albo. The mint is beautiful. If you love the minty green tones of leaves, you can get some Monstera Albos that have the minty green leaf color, because I have one of mine that does that too. But just the leaves, they're beautiful. I do love the yellow variegation. They are beautiful. The Aurea can be more prone to browning on the yellow parts of the leaves, just because, again, with that chlorophyll issue. So the Aurea, maybe if you don't really care about the browning appearance. I don't know how much, how prone the mint is to rot, just because I haven't cared for one, or like the growth pattern and everything. I love the minty color more than the Aurea. I feel like the yellow. So if I were to have a mint, I feel like that would be like my top favorite plant right now. But I love the Albo too, the white. So it's a hard toss up. I would say I love the look of the mint over the Aurea, but maybe I'd give it to the mint, but since I haven't cared for it, I can't really speak on it yet. But I love both of them, and I say eventually you might want to get both of them. I hope you enjoyed and you had a lot of fun with this video. It was fun to film and do this one, and I feel like since I had majority of these plants, it was easier for me to talk about them. But out of all of them, I definitely recommend a lot of these plants, and I love a lot of them. If you've had your eye on one, I say just go for it. You don't know how it's going to do for you until you've actually had it in your care and have grown it. Because sometimes it may surprise you. You might do really well with it, and you might fall in love with it. So if your heart is saying go for it, and just see how it does. If it's really expensive, then just, again, weigh your options out and just see kind of how others feel about it. And don't necessarily buy off the one leaf too, because that leaf is never guaranteed to stay. Leaves have a lifespan, so don't buy a plant based off a particular leaf. I have done that in the past. Buy it, Google pictures of it as a whole and see what it looks like mature, see what it looks like in its not so happy state, and just get a feel for the plant and seeing other pictures of it. So thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you for suggesting these plants to talk about, and I will talk to you guys later.